Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Christian Recorder Dialogues. My name is Laura Wilson, and I am sitting here with the amazing Miss Dora Muhammad. I am excited about this conversation, given what just happened on the floor. So we got a lot to get into, but I want to give you a little info about her that will help us with the conversation. So Miss Muhammad is the Senior Director of Coalition and Campaigns at Faith in Public Life, along with an ambassador to women for the Institute of Caribbean Studies. She's also an entrepreneur. She's an author. She's all great things, and I'm ready to have this very intense conversation.
Yes.
And we'll get into what just happened on the floor, and if you will be able to explain to us, because I think a lot of people don't understand what just happened. There was a
Yes.
lot of confusion.
It was.
So I think maybe we should start with that before the
Let's start with that,
questions.
'cause, yes,
Let's
it needs to
start
be a
with what
catharsis.
happened. How did we get here to having this conversation? What just happened, and what does it mean moving forward?
So, what just happened on the floor at the General Conference was the killing of an amendment from the Sexual Ethics Committee, from what I'm understanding, that would strike language that was put into the discipline in 2004 that banned same-sex marriages.
Okay.
And so, what was beautiful, though, in the prelude to the vote was Reverend Dr. Teresa Fry Brown going through the past 3 years of work and the intentional work of looking into the doctrine, looking into biblical text, the sacred text, looking into policies, bringing in other denominations, other countries, Africa, because of the implications there. That's cultural, that's different from the United States laws. And just to the level of deliberation and scholarship and transparency and candor, bringing in, making sure every generation was involved in the deliberations, that there was a covenant that was done. It was approached with very intentional sanctity of the process,
which we have not seen in other years.
And that's disappointing, because I just felt like all of that was just dismissed and set aside without any discussion, without the honor and the appreciation that it deserved, for there to even be debate on the floor about the work and diving into the work. I left out, I'm not sure if they passed, there was a resolution immediately read from the Revisions Committee to keep the Sexual Ethics Committee alive, to continue to do this work, which again is the spirit of liberation that we embody in AME. And so I'm prayerful that I walked out because it was very emotional.
It's heavy.
In the work that I do dealing with human rights, the resolution really just embodied all of that. And it spoke to the level of the fact that the work that the Sexual Ethics Committee did grounded the integrity of the AME Church to be in spaces to advocate and fight for human rights, to fight for civil rights. And by them dashing the resolution to strike that language out of the discipline, it erases our integrity to do that.
Why do words matter?
Oh goodness, their power. It's power.
And I ask that only because, and I ask that only because it just feels like, even with, it just seems like they're just doing whatever they want to do at the end of the day. It feels very strategic. It feels like we're going to acknowledge this because we know we need to acknowledge it, but we're also going to keep going because we got other stuff to do. But this is one of the most anticipated topics here. I'm telling you, everybody I've spoken to is like, I can't wait to hear what they have to say about this.
It is, absolutely. And you felt it. It was very palpable in the room. Again, because of the work that led up to us getting to even having this, what we're seeing right now is a reckoning of humanity in all of the faith communities. And so even when Dr. Fry Brown shared how what we see happening in other denominations, we have to then step back and examine, what are we doing within the AME denomination? That still wasn't good enough. And it did feel very performative, if you will, the vote, because there was a lot of challenges on the floor why debate was ended so soon, that there was not a full debate. And then even when the delegates themselves asked if they could have a recess, a 3-minute recess, it was not like 3 hours, a simple 3-minute recess, so that each table of delegates could really understand what they're voting on and the implications of their vote, it created a very loud uproar on the floor.
And then this is just so unfortunate.
It is. It's heartbreaking.
He asked for 3 minutes.
Yes.
And then he was very calm.
Yes.
And then he was cut off.
Yes.
And then he was checked about his attitude or him now getting, but it's like, do you understand how
what you just did,
heightened
the hurt,
this, right?
And to go back to your question about words, why do words matter? That's when you interrupt people or cut people off,
yes,
you know you are disenfranchising their voice.
You're dismissing.
And so it's that power. So we cannot talk about we are a church, a denomination, a people wanting liberation, wanting freedom, but you cut off my voice. The words that we utter out loud have more effect than the words that we think.
Absolutely.
And words that are negative have even more impact and more they prevail longer than positive words. That's why to be intentional about being positive, being affirmative, and the whole preface of that language that they was sought to strike out was that it was punitive, that it was framed from white supremacist, colonialist, imperialistic colonization context of faith, that again, which is what has drawn me to the AME denomination, is that we stretch back beyond
completely
white Christian supremacy in this country.
Absolutely.
And you have African countries that have adopted that same punitive language in policies. I call it violence. It is violence codified in policy. And I think that I know we're going to get into questions about public policy, but my main thing is that as a faith community, institutional faiths, denominations, you have to ground what you're trying to achieve out in the world first internally within your denomination.
Before
and what happened today was a shame and a disgrace. It was heartbreaking. I was fighting back tears, and I'm not. I think what was striking was there was a context put as though the delegates were voting to support external people. It was framed as family and friends. Like, we know family, we have friends. No, it's those delegates that were themselves voting. It was people within the congregation in the seats as observers. You're speaking to members of the LGBTQ community sitting right here, heartbreaking. And I just walked around and just hugged several of them because I felt the enough of their humanity being dashed to the ground in the vote that just happened.
And also the words that are not being said hurt too.
Yes.
You know, sometimes silence is also the problem, right? So I'm hurting. I think we're all hurting. Allies are hurting. Those directly affected are hurting. And I actually do believe that some on the stage, some bishops and everything are hurting as well. This is just really, really, really unfortunate. And I'm hoping for good, because my next question to you is, then we can get into the plan points, or if we get there. My next question to you is, what does this mean now? Like, this happened. Do we have to wait another 4 years? What to talk about this again? What's going to happen now, or what do you think or see will happen?
So what I saw, especially because of the immediate bringing to the floor the resolution by the revisions committee, showed that they were prepared for this vote.
Okay.
And it speaks to the perseverance that freedom fighters have had to fight generationally. And so I think we have to brace ourselves and gird ourselves very similarly with that same preparing for the future, preparing for the long term, because although this was a moment that could have been transformative for the AME denomination, it was not. But the promise of the transformative nature of a vote of liberation from language that codifies and dehumanizes and marginalizes a whole sector of our denomination, of humanity, of our community, that does not die
at all.
And so the precedent of I think I don't know who, a pastor, I believe, on the floor had shared this, how we've come to these historic moments in the past dealing with women preaching in the church, dealing with even ourselves and our own humanity in terms of slavery and enslavement in this country. And so the moment has passed in terms of the physical vote. The consciousness for the liberation remains. And so the fight continues. I saw levels of disappointment as I saw members who had been on part of the sexual ethics committee walk out.
There was a guy walking around waving
LGBTQI
flag, which is so powerful.
From DC, I know
especially
him.
as a Black man.
Absolutely.
To do that is
absolutely
that touched me.
And so his defiance of the vote, he didn't just walk around, and he walked up front with it, right? And so that speaks to the what's next. this does not kill the spirit of those of us who know the justice that would have been involved in passing that amendment. And we continue to move and press forward.
So how can we're going to do some questions out of order. Sure. It's a conversation.
Yes.
I know this is affecting anyone who is an ally or is directly affected to it, but this is really has taken a toll on young people.
Yes.
In particular, you know, and that young adult got up there and spoke so eloquently about even when they were trying to cut him off. I have to mention that because that's important to say. And he just he spoke up for the young adults having a voice.
Yes.
So given now what just happened, what do you think is the best way to engage young people?
So that was part of the moments, one of the moments that brought me to tears inside there was hearing that young brother speak, because again, I think we do a lot of surface integration of young adults. I think we do a lot of showcasing, right? The outside that looks good, the gifts, the talents. Let's have this program. Let's acknowledge their achievements in education. Let's acknowledge when they've gotten these positions.
Absolutely.
And all sort of these life milestones, if you will, but we don't really get to a deeper level of the things that actually give them life. And I think so a personal reflection. I was invited to share poetry at an upcoming event that the young adult ministry is doing in my church. And so I said I would love to, but I'm on the outer edge of the young adulthood, right?
You're still with us.
So right, but there was a respect there.
Yes.
What I was intimating to the head of the ministry was there's a respect that we have to give to young adults that they fully embody. They're not the future. The future is present with them now. And so I think hearing the brother on the floor, it spoke to, and the actual cutting him off actually spoke to the deficiency that exists now with engaging young people, where it cannot be in the pleasant places. It can't be in the pretty pageantry places. It has to also be full engagement in the uncomfortable decisions for their future of our lives and our faith and our denomination. Like, if you have not integrated or fully threaded young adults into decision making, into the actual thread of wisdom, you know, it is not that we're dismissing the wisdom that our elders have, but we must fully embrace and amplify the wisdom that our young adults have as well. Our young adults dream of and envision the world. This is the world that they will lead and inhabit now. And so they have to be threaded into those processes very authentically. And I think by cutting the voice off shows a level of our elders not being really true and authentic, that they're really ready to embrace who and what our young adults bring to the table now.
I'll tell you what I would like to see happen. Number one, there's a few things you are talking my language. This is what I do as a profession. I'm a youth development specialist. I work with high trauma, LGBTQIA plus kids in a alternative high school in New York City. All 5 boroughs. So you're talking my language. But I think that one of the things that hurt, there's a lot of hurt that's happening. But the thing that's hurting me the most are these young people where trauma and hurt is being created right here
inside. That's right.
That is so daunting for me, because it's just like, this is the place where we're supposed to be healed, where we're supposed to feel accepted.
Yes.
And I feel like people are coming in here with anxiety. People are coming here on their meds because, like, seriously, and even young kids now. And this speaks to the mental health crisis that is happening. And I feel like even if whatever they decide to do regarding this bill or the language or whatever, there are other ways that I think we can help, meaning mental health services, giving them resources that are out there. I just feel like this whole subject is being left for dry. Or why aren't we solution based? I know we're making progress, but I just feel like, okay, 9 times out of 10, I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, realistically speaking, most people
of the time,
but there are other ways that we can support one another, but especially our young people. When y'all keep saying the church can only stay strong with you all. We need y'all. We need y'all. We need y'all. But we're not gonna do nothing to support y'all though. But we need y'all though.
Right.
We need y'all to step up. But we're not gonna do anything.
It's the difference between theory and practice.
Like, huh?
Like, how do you actually embody the principles that you say you're trying to? And again, I think speaking to the trauma, I think that those who have lived the trauma that God is creating, those are the spaces where God fosters where the healing comes from. And so again, dismissing that generation, right, of that hurt that's now compounded because this amendment and the bill sought to address the trauma of when it was implemented, and understanding again the cultural differences between the continents. But so there was an acknowledgement that certain people are voting because of the policies that their governments have enacted. But here in the U.S., we don't have that. Right. So we can be a model here in the U.S. for what we're talking about, to really bring forth that healing and be very practical about it. And again, I think there was a social media post that I saw on Saturday night that showed pictures from Rayak's ball.
Yes, we were in attendance.
With the retirement celebration. In one post, it had pictures of both. And I thought how much that speaks to the continuum of life that we need to actually be supporting at every stage. And it doesn't. I think that there is only a sense of celebrating and supporting in all of the dimensions our elders and seeing them transition off, and not the same level of detail and support that is espoused for young adults to truly transition into adulthood.
I love your positive outlook, or just seeing it from a different lens, because I think a lot of what's happening too is everyone's interpreting things differently. We're all seeing things in our own way. Now, there's beauty in it, but it can also be very daunting. My last question, because I could talk to you all day,
me too.
And now that I have your number, I'm going to ask you. How do I word this? Public policy.
Okay.
That's your thing.
It is.
How do you feel? Do you feel like the AME Church is doing enough in public policy? If not, what can we be doing more of? Any suggestions? Like, what are we doing here?
What are we
doing here?
Again, trying to separate myself from what just happened, right? Because that's indicative.
And that's important to say too, because I think
it is.
It's all becoming one.
It really is
for everyone.
It is, because the policies out there. How can we influence and affect society around us if we haven't really created that within ourselves as a community? So in terms of policy, like there's practical and there's spiritual. So I'll speak from the spiritual first.
Okay.
Because I think more than any I do a lot of interfaith work, more than any denomination that I've worked with within the Christian faith. It is the AME Church that speaks boldly and most consistently and with the most integrity for liberation.
Wow.
For freedom. And I think it is because, again, we stand on the foundation of our ancestors. We reach back beyond the constructs that this country has given us. And so globally, there's a presence of AME. My family in the Caribbean, I grew up, with that staunch AME elders around me, right? And it's something that grounds how you look, how society should be.
Absolutely.
And what's our role in it. And I think more than any other time in history, the AME voice is the most prophetic in cautioning government externally. And honestly, even the agitation of the unsettling that happened today with the vote, that is what the AME is known for, right? And so it makes sense that it happens internally, but externally, that's why we've been successful in the external, because it is sort of the historic roots of the AME denomination in and of itself, more than any other denomination. So there's a prophetic calling now to do more, to be more consistent in terms of public policy, to eradicate the violence that is codified in policy. And so that's the spiritual context spiritual of it, right? And then, of course, we're in election season. So, like, there has been, many AMEs who involved in all levels of government, right? So I think we get that, right? We get how we need to run and be a part of the political process. being in the world but not of it, right? Laying forth the framework for our values to shape policy, I think is more important than elevating specific policies. I think that values is what's missing. There's a darkness of humanity that has struck policymaking that sort of makes it easy to strip humans of their dignity, to strip humans of their respect. And I think faith institutions in general, but specifically the AME faith voice, is the most prolific in this space of really striking at needing to preserve and elevate and protect human dignity in everything that we're doing. So vote yes, because you can have good policies if you don't have policymakers in office that align with your values. But also, I think there's a hidden level of power that people, it's obscured for a reason. And that's why we haven't really gained spaces. There's a whole slate of boards, commissions, working groups that where policy is formed before it reaches legislations and elected officials.
Absolutely.
These are the boards and commissions that elected officials use to shape and guide their legislative decisions. And I think we need to be intentional about being in those spaces, joining those spaces, whether it's by appointment or election, and also giving testimony. Again, the prophetic voice that needs to be there to call forth the moral imperatives behind policy. I think it's more important than specific policy making is creating the framework for just and equitable policy.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So we are in voting election season. It is crucial. And this is the big one, but local elections are like, honestly, I don't want to say more important, but just as important. It starts locally and works its way up. So I need you all to understand that it's all local, and then you work your way up. And then also, shout out to Higher Heights. I have to give a shameless plug because Higher Heights is a nonprofit organization that mobilizes and elects Black women in office, helps them become in the office, and they endorse them, and they are endorsing our vice president right now. So this is great work. So this was all heavy. We're going to close on a lighter note. How do you speak to yourself? Speak kindness to yourself. What is your self-care while the world is worlding? What is your the world is life is lifing. What is your self-care, your soul care?
So I'll give the plug because you didn't give. So she's saying speak kindness because
I'm getting there.
Okay, you are okay. So
but you don't hype yourself up.
Okay, so I'll say so. I am a creative. So more than anything, when I was a child, I was told that I learned to write before I spoke or walked or crawled. I was sitting in my grandmother's lap and I picked up a pen and started writing the letters of the alphabet. So writing has been not only just a gift from God that I recognize, it has been how I envision the world, how I deal with the world. I'll tell people before I speak to you, I probably write 10 poems, and I can really cope and capture what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. This is how I ideate in the world is through writing. But I'm also a photographer as well. So all of the arts growing up then has this extended sort of how I deal. And I believe, again, it's creativity. So it is divine. It is all sacred for me. It is from the creator. And so it is how I see, how I see the divine moving, how I see the sacred speaking. It'll come forth from me in one form of the art. I'm also a dancer. So literally people know I've had bedrooms that instead of them being a bedroom, they have been studios with wood because I just need a space to express and exude the sacred out into the world.
It is so healthy. And I think a lot of us don't have outlets or haven't figured out where our outlets is yet. So we all have the different copings and stuff like that. And I always encourage healthy coping and outlets, but you have a beautiful spirit. You really do. You have a beautiful spirit. And I encourage you in this work. We need more people like you. We need to be having these conversations more openly. And thank you for doing that. You can plug whatever you want to plug in.
Well, because to that extent, even though I'm very public, I am very shy, and people don't really expect that.
But it's usually the shy ones who are creative and
that makes sense. So I have a new outlet that I'm proud to share from the Christian Recorder. Starting actually with the printed Christian Recorder that was published for the General Conference. You will see on the next to last page a column, my first column called Rites and Rituals, that would be appearing monthly now for about a year. And I'm excited because I do know that my words inspire. Right. I believe that is why God gave me the gift of writing
Words
to inspire.
matter.
So I look forward to you all engaging in my monthly column
I'm
and reading
excited
it.
about that. Thank you. I apologize for not mentioning that.
It's okay.
I'm excited for all the work that you're doing, and thank you for advocating for us. I know we didn't even get into the women movement, the feminist
That'll be
movement.
part two. I'll
We
be
could do
back.
a
I'm not
part
going
two
anywhere. I'm
because
not
I am
going
a third.
anywhere.
I'm a third wave feminist,
I
so
love it.
I'm a
Okay.
hip hop. That's the hip hop era.
I
However,
love
there's
it.
a lot to be spoken for that as well.
There
But
is. There is.
that's heavy, you know.
Yes.
And even still, like how the role that women play in the church
Absolutely.
is a whole different conversation that I
Absolutely.
think is
I'm ready for
necessary to
it.
have. Thank you
We will
so
have it.
much.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping for a better half a day.
Yes. Yes.
And we this is the I'm gonna leave with this. I know a lot of people are very discouraged with what's going on. But this is business. The business has to happen, you know. So I know it's hard. It's hard to sit through, but be encouraged and stay there. And it's important for you to be in the room and to listen to what's
Yes.
happening. You know, listen. You may not understand it, and that is why we have these outlets. That is why we have Miss Muhammad here to break it down for you because it is a lot to take in. But we are all in this together. We are going to see it through and all will be well. So I thank you for joining us. We will have some more interviews coming up before the election today because this is a heavy day. This is going to be very hectic. But thank you so much, and we will see you soon.